We're breaking down walls, tearing apart the lies. Together we'll stand, watch the whole world rise. Faith transcends boundaries, uniting every heart. In this movement of love, we're all taking part.
Welcome back to the Vision Podcast. Thank you so much again for tuning in. This episode is once again sponsored by Path Recovery. Just want to say thank you to those guys. If you haven't checked them out yet, check them out, pathrecoverytn.com. They're doing some great work to help people in recovery. It's just been amazing to have them support us in this. Today's episode is no different than any of the other episodes. I know every day that I'm on here, I say we have the most phenomenal guests, but that's not a lie, because everybody that we've had on here has just been phenomenal and amazing. And today's guest really is near and dear to my heart. He's not only an amazing father and husband and friend and brother. I mean, this guy, I can't say enough about him. I mean, they even made a freaking movie about him, So, but not only that, he is the executive director and founder of a ministry that is really near and dear to my heart. One that helped me walk in my journey of recovery and just with Christ and trying to, grow and rebuild who I was as a man and who I am as a man. And, ever since then, they've still been walking with me, even over the years. And it's been an amazing thing. So I want to say a huge thank you and have you all welcome Joey Lankford.
Thanks, bro. Yeah. I'm so happy to be here, and it's so good to see you. I am humbled to be here. I am grateful to have been able to be a part of your journey over the last 4 or 5 years and really see how God's moved in that. I never would have dreamt in a million years that I would be sitting on the receiving end of a podcast and an invitation to do this. So I'm stoked to be here.
It's cool, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's cool, isn't it? Yeah.
Always blows my mind.
Yeah, dude, you walked with me through one of the darkest times that I've been through. I mean, and you guys never gave up, man. You always kept hope for me, and that's what really helped drive me.
Yeah, I think looking back and recalling that time, I always could look in your eyes and see somebody that was fighting vigorously to get through to the other side, to punch a hole in that black wall and get to where the light could shine through. And I mean, we're sitting here today, and so you pounded the wall enough for some cracks to come through and to find your way. So yeah, you did, but you were steadfast in your resolve, and I'm just so proud of you, and I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you, Joey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And so that's really what I want to get into today, is about that struggle and that growth that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you have a pretty significant story of how you got started and how you started Cultivate and how you even got to the position where we could meet,
Absolutely.
So I want the people to hear about that and where you got, how you got to where you are.
I grew up in Middle Tennessee, right here. I was in Dixon, so like 45 minutes from where we're sitting right now. I call it a normal Southern childhood. My parents, and I'm the oldest of 5 siblings. All of them live still relatively close to my family. My mom and dad still together. And so I grew up, my dad started a healthcare company, and I figured out in my early 20s that I didn't like college. Part of that was because I got kicked out of a couple, and just couldn't find my spot. And so I came home, and my dad had started a healthcare company, and so I started working in it. It started delivering hospital beds and equipment. And it wasn't too long before it started growing, and he started investing in people training me and stuff like that. And I went back to an old church that I grew up in, and was reconnected with Courtney, who's been my wife for 24 years, be 25 next April.
Awesome.
Yeah, so saw her again, and literally in church looked at her and thought, I didn't remember you being this good looking. Like, I don't know if I was just distracted but we started dating, we got married, put school on the back burner, just wanted to work and then provide for a family. I mean, that was it, married, and wasn't too long after we got married, she got pregnant with Briley, who's our 23-year-old daughter now. And then right shortly after that, we had another one, Braxton, and then another one, Barron. And so time was going by, and we were developing, growing our family and developing the business and growing it. It was a really fastly growing business, relationally connected to many hospitals around the local Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee network of hospitals. So we were being blessed tremendously with just a patient load, and saw income going up, started to build me a new house and buy my property and build my barn and set my deer stands where I wanted them. And and that was in my early 30s, you know, realizing that most of the dreams that I had were materializing pretty dang early, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 4-wheelers, Jeeps, you know, everything I wanted, I could sort of get within reason. You know, I wasn't wealthy per se, but I definitely was ahead of my peers, I think, in where that road was going to lead. And then the train just stopped on me because she came to me one day out of the blue and she said, "Hey, Joey, man, I think we need to adopt a baby." And I was like, my goodness. I mean, it's not like something we got married saying, "Hey, one of these days we want to do this." This was like, and she goes like, "It's just something that's been on my heart." And, you know, I like making babies quite a bit. So I was like, well, I've enjoyed the first 3 paths to getting a baby, but if this is something you want to do, I don't know if I should have said that on the podcast, but we're going to roll with that because we're going to keep it in there too. People need to get to know me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but I said, if that's something you want to do, let me pray about it for 6 weeks. That just came right off my tongue. Like, just let me pray about it. Now, if you're a Christian, you can buy 6 weeks, whether you pray about it or not is your business. But if you say that, you can buy 6 weeks of time. And I did. But then that 6 weeks ran out and she came to me and she said, "Now, did the Lord give you any epiphany about what I asked you about? Like, should we do this? Should we not?" You know, like, and I'm like, you know, at that moment, on my 12 by 26 deck overlooking my property, I just looked at her and said, "If that's something you want to do, babe, that's something you want to do. Look, I'm behind you 100%. Like, I will work my can off to make sure that we have the resources to do that." And I truly was behind her. Like, if it's something I could see in her eyes, it's something she longed to do. And what I didn't know when I committed to that God was going to use that one decision to change my entire life and repurpose me, if you will, for ministry, and put me in a place where even walking the 18-month journey to get Bristol, who is now our freshman daughter at Brentwood High School. She was 10 months old, Ethiopian. I found myself in Ethiopia on July 4th, 2010, picking up this baby with a Wisconsin Badgers cheerleading uniform on. And they handed her to me, and I'm like, you know, and she looked at me like, "What are you? You're like a ghost." Yeah, I mean, like probably the first white person she ever saw, you know? And I just took her to a room that we had for the week or whatever, and I remember all I knew to do was take lollipops with me, so I stuck a lollipop in her mouth, and we became instant friends. And, but as I began to think about the impact of that one decision that my wife brought to me on the deck that day, I began to really question whether the road I was on was taking me where I wanted to end up. Like, I was financially fine.
Yeah.
I still have a beautiful wife, had a little family, but was that what God built me to do? Like, you know, it was just this resounding thought while I watched the fan go around above my bed at night.
Yeah.
And just laid there and thought, now, you know, this could end up taking me in some really cool places, but are those places going to be that place that I grew up knowing existed for those that believe, right? That shalom, that peace that I know that God has taken me somewhere. He's done miraculous things and powerful things through my life. So I did the first thing I started doing was like, probably for the first time in my life, praying. Like, Lord, I don't feel good about this. Like, I'm starting to feel this holy discontentment set in. Like, there's something else you got for me. And like, what do you want to do? And right after Christmas, in January, that discontentment drove me to a barn that was on my farm. And I came home from work and went in at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, took a can of snuff and my Bible, had country music radio in there, opened the doors to the horses, let them put their heads in there, put a fire in the wood stove, and I just sat down on the hay. And I didn't go down there to really have the encounter that I had. It was more just like, I got to make sense of this.
Yeah.
You know, like, I got to make sense of this, like searching, man. Like deep, deep seeking of like, man, I know everything seems really, really good, but at the same time seems really, really wrong. You know, like there's something else that I was built to do or meant to do. And I didn't go in there intending to stay till Sunday, but I ended up staying in there Friday night, Saturday night, coming back out Sunday morning. And on the post of my barn, they actually, that movie you referenced, they went back into that barn and asked the new owner if they could remake the scene. But basically, I just took a pen out and I started writing scriptures on the post of the barn. And then I wrote the word surrender on one of the posts. And I think in that moment, it was like late Saturday night. It was sort of cold in there. But I know without a doubt in my moment, in that conversation with God at that moment, I said, look, I don't know what this looks like. And it scares the hell out of me to do this. But I'm going to step off the throne of my life and try to put you there, right? And when I got out of the barn, my wife was like, did the Lord show you anything, while you were down there? And I'm like, I mean, he showed up. I don't think he clarified anything for me, but I do know that I made a commitment to try to let him get on the throne of my life and me step off of it, quit building our whole orbit around me, and just start trying to exist in the man I claim to be, which is a leader, husband, leader, and father that seeks after the Lord.
Right.
Like really seeks after the Lord, not just Sunday
putting
morning.
Your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, like
it.
I don't know, and it scares me. Like even now, I'm reflecting it through this. Like I didn't even know what I was saying. In the moment, I was just like somebody who really had a heart change in a barn of all places, and just really felt like, okay, it doesn't really matter anymore. Like we're gonna really do this, and I knew if I was gonna really do it, I started having to say it to people. And we started having to live differently. So we started giving things away and selling things. And right as 6 months after we picked up Bristol, 4 months after we picked up Bristol, we got her passport and social security number through the U.S. government back here stateside. And we left with 17 crates of clothes. And we moved to the tip of the continent of Africa, where we landed with a ministry called Living Hope. And it was one of President Bush's USAID organizations that was dealing with the AIDS pandemic and some of the unemployment-related issues that were expressing themselves in the townships. And we ended up beside a township called Masapumalele. And it's literally, if you drop a pin on the tip of the continent of Africa, we were living there. And as we began to look at what we were going to do, a Zimbabwean farmer named Sorrel, 63 years old, was there in South Africa on asylum seeker papers. He had some greenhouses for sale, of which we bought a couple and set them up as a training center. Okay. And I knew nothing about farming. I was an outdoors guy, but that wasn't my deal. So I don't know why God brought me to greenhouses. I do now. I'm looking back on it. It's like He always sent me to Africa, to bring me back home, but we got the greenhouses and we just started training people. And the blacks from the townships began to come and work alongside of me. And then we were contracted with like a Whole Foods in the area called Food Lovers Market to grow tomatoes. We grew that to 13 greenhouses with a pretty robust training program behind it that empowered those unemployed blacks from the townships and readied them for placement in white-owned businesses, which is primarily what is in Cape Town. I grew up in that season of life.
Okay.
Like, when I say grew up, I was working in a context totally foreign to me with people that were relationally much deeper than me, and with an accent that you hear on this podcast that people would stop and be like,
it's about as different as you could get.
It's like,
right?
what is this guy rolling through the township, you know? God used it as a great ministry tool for me because it began to be something that was recognizable just in the townships we were working in. I think it disarmed a lot of people.
Yeah. Did you have a nickname?
I didn't have a nickname, but the kids would follow behind me.
Yeah.
When they thought I wasn't looking, and they would be walking like, you know, a cowboy.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd be pulling their hands out.
John Wayne.
Yeah,
that's
just
funny.
shooting at each other. And then I'd turn around and they'd stop. You know, they didn't want me to see it. But it became just sort of like this thing that I really enjoyed learning about, which was the social inequity that I saw in South Africa, which was very pure because it was literally across the 4-lane highway. So the township where we served, we lived up on the mountain, and they would come into the homes as domestic workers or yard people every day, and uber rich people, you know, on the side of the hill, but literally a 4-lane highway separated us. Wow. And so I tell people it's like the purest cross section of the richest and poorest in the world, literally living side by side. And I got to learn from them. I got to learn from Living Hope. I got to learn from the things I did wrong, the things I did right. Even Sorrel, the Zimbabwean man that put his life on mine for 5 years, taught me how to be patient in relationships, taught me how to not assume the things that, you know, Western culture drives us to do so fast. You got to scan, and then you got to make an assessment, and then you got to move towards something that is going to be the outcome of your relationship. And that's not African culture. Yeah. You know, it's much slower, much more meaningful, deep. It's a deeply spiritual continent, you know. I mean, and so I learned to live under those rhythms. The first 18 months were brutal because I'm a high-wired.
Yeah, no,
I'm a high-wired person.
That's a huge shock.
And it was just me grappling with, it's okay to sit for 3 hours over dinner. It's okay to have noon tea or whatever, you know, whatever the culture is. Take a break. Like, get to know somebody. And that ministry, obviously still going. It's bigger and better than it was when I was there. I'm a builder and a pioneer by nature, and so I could feel the winds of change, and I think Courtney could too, blowing in our lives again. Like, you know, we don't know what it is and don't necessarily want to move back to America, but there's something different, probably time to hand the baton off here in Africa. My wife, we began to really just seek the Lord, you know, and I had some stuff that I could have done coming back home to pay the bills, which obviously, you know, when you have kids like I got, you need to have a job quickly. Yeah. A
lot of mouths to feed.
I couldn't get release to go to any of them. They were secure, safe, insurance, salary, you know, like there's just a couple of, it's mostly like missional advocacy stuff, like just promoting missions and working with the church and whatever. And there kept being this thing that we kept coming back to, which was food, like stay with food. And so on Valentine's night, right before we came back, 2015, I looked at her and I said, I'm going to decline any kind of, we're going to stay in food. And whatever that looks like, I think it's like starting another nonprofit stateside, adding more framework to what we've already been introduced to in Africa, using the relationships that we have to build something. And that's what we did. We moved home. We took 4 kids. My wife got pregnant while we were there. And so we brought back 5. Oh, wow. Baylor's our 5th grader now. So I told you we have a 23-year-old daughter. We got a 10-year-old daughter. I just dropped off to school this morning before I came over here. Yeah. So busy household still at the Lankford house. But when I got back, I'll ask our then Governor Haslam, who he and I had developed a relationship with. I said, look, this is what the Lord's put on my heart. And he said, see my commissioner of agriculture. And so I went and I saw Commissioner Julius Johnson, and I asked him for land. I said, Lord, before I went in to meet with him, I said, what are you telling me? What are you giving me favor for this quickly? And he said, you're just asking for land. So I did, and they gave me 8 acres, which is where you and I met. Yeah. On that 8 acres of ground, which has become a real hallowed place of peace and connection, as you know. And then people that started coming to build, cultivate, farm were addicts and people coming out of prison, right? I didn't set it up for that. I'll be honest with you. It was just like, I didn't even see myself moving into the space where I was an advocate for underemployed people. It doesn't matter how you got there. Yeah. But like, you don't need to be there stuck if you don't want to be there. Like, we're living in a country that should provide, I think, pathways for people like you who want to keep pounding that wall and finding that light breakthrough to have the chances to continue to do that. Amen. But as I got into Cultivate and I got to see you, Chris Comstock, Wendell Taylor, these men and women who wanted to have true life change come through that program and help me start building what is now Cultivate, you know, farms with 500,000 pounds of food, tremendous pathway for growth and health and food and training and resource for the underemployed. I never could have dreamt it. I mean, go back to the barn, 2009, 2010, and pray the prayer that, Lord, I'm going to surrender my life to you, but I'm going to ask that you do more than I could ask or imagine. I'm sitting here with you. You are a walking witness that prayer's been answered. You in the flesh, Daniel in the flesh, is a walking example that in that barn, in that moment, God heard my prayer. Because if I could go back, and I tell this to my staff all the time, Cultivate's led by better people than me, most of whom and graduated coming out of prison or whatever, but have taken ownership over this ministry. I keep reminding them that my testimony is if I could go back to that barn, every one of you has a face that I would do every bit of this journey over for again. Because I see the redemption with you and Colleen and your family. And, there's so many stories like that make my family story much more richer and special because we can see an impact. I probably don't see very much of it this side of heaven. Revelation will come in eternity.
You're seeing a pretty good.
I'm getting to see a lot of it, and I think a lot of my peers look around at me and be like, that's pretty cool. You're getting to work down there with addicts and people coming out of prison, but you're also being transformed by those people in a very tangible way because you're learning. I tell people that I think God's biggest revelation to me is that he gave me Cultivate, not me to cultivate. Yeah. Meaning I was the one that needed it. I was the one that needed to be measured and to be looked at and to be valued, not by the things that were going around me socially or politically or powerful. I needed to be with people on a farm who just wanted to be sober one more day. Like, that's it. Because I needed to have my feet in the dirt with them, my hands in the dirt with them, just so that I could deal with my own addictions, my own things, and have somebody to talk to. I think you were around when I had like a mental health anxiety crisis where we were doing Cultivate, and all of a sudden I couldn't sleep. And it went on for like 45 days. And through Christian counselors and through medications and Christian physicians, I was literally showing up at the farm and you guys were carrying me around and hiding me from people, Jimmy and people that you love and value. And y'all were just providing a cover for me to heal and to get better. And I remember Matt Worley, our buddy, showing up one day and saying, we watch you. You got everything in the world. But the one thing that I think God's trying to teach you through this is empathy. And I remember thinking, oh, man. He's like, you got everything. You say the things in ministry we wish you could say, but you're feeling it now. You're like feeling what we feel. That hard. And dude, it wreck shopped me. It wreck shopped me. It was literally 6 months of my life, and still go to counseling and try to deal with the PTSD from that. Like just not being able to control my mind for a certain period of a season of my life and the impact of that on family and a marriage and, all the stuff, but I was having to deal with it. And literally the people that ministered to me most were the people who were going through it every day. Wow. Right. Wow. And so I was just like, man, and thankfully the resources were there to help me get in the right place and to find my line for healing and redemption. Still, I talk about surrender. You know me really well. You know the Joey that's out there on the farm, spitting the dip, talking, joking, cutting up, and you guys are my people when you come down there because I know I can be myself, no judgment. Yeah. Which I don't get that very often in the places and spaces that I live, work, and play, but that is a safe place for me. Every time I roll down there and you graduates are there or whatever, I know, man, it's just time to be real and figure out where the need is, where the prayer needs to come from, strongholds need to be broken. And y'all do the same for me. So, again, sitting here is a huge honor for me and a huge moment of just confirmation and God saying, I'm still in the story and I'm still going to do more to your prayer of ask or imagine than you could ever dream of now, this year, 2024, 2025. So
it's still going.
Yeah, it's still going. It's like the domino effect.
Yeah.
You know, it's like right now you're doing a podcast. Okay, me and you would have never dreamt this.
No.
I mean,
no, I never would have saw
no.
this. No.
And I wouldn't, I mean, you know, Daniel, married, couple kids, maybe a construction job, maybe, you know, like just because you had that, you got that work ethic, you got that acumen, you know, you're smart, smart dude. But this, going out and intentionally trying with resources and connections, like you said, Pathway is, you know, one of your partners that's paying for this or helping underwrite the cost. Yeah. I mean, now you're mobilizing a ministry that could have a domino effect that you'll be in my seat. You won't know until you get to eternity how many people were impacted because of your decisions to step out and do something. I know this is hard stuff to do. I mean, it's not easy to go out and raise money and to get sponsors and to commit the time to this. So I'm deeply honored and wouldn't want to be anywhere else today.
Yeah. I mean, same, man. Thank you for being
Absolutely,
here
bro.
And thank you
so
for
proud
your story, man. And you know, there's something you said that really stuck out to me, and something I don't want to glaze over because I feel like there's more in there.
Okay.
You were saying about how you and Courtney got to where you were like giving stuff away and stuff like that, and then you just jumped to, hey, we're moving to Africa.
Uh-huh.
What happened in between? I mean, that couldn't have just been, hey, let's just go. Or
no, man. I mean, I was in the place where I felt like God was really, really moving. She was too. I mean, I tell people now, if God's calling you to something, He knows the importance and the value of marriage. So you can bet that He's already speaking to your wife about it. You're not going to have to put no sales pitch on her. Like, it's going to make sense. And that's what started happening in Courtney and I's conversations. Like, I mean, all of a sudden, she was a champion of selling all the things that we had worked so hard to attain and, like, literally moving to a place we didn't know it was Cape Town. You know, at the time, she could have been walking to and from a river with a basket on her head, you know, ministering to people. We didn't know where we were going to be able to go. Cape Town, if you don't know, is a beautiful place, first world. A lot of racial inequity and stuff that goes on there, but it's a great place. I mean, we had health care and our kids went to school. And so we ended up being called to a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful 5 years of life. But before I went, I was taking a girl from her parents, moving her to a place unknown.
The other side of the world.
That they know, they're old Tennessee folks, right?
Yeah.
They Africa to them has a lot of preconceived or you know, I mean,
see that
it's you know, dark, violent, you know, some of the, you know, and so I was like, if something happens to her, I mean, my father-in-law is going to kill me, you know, and my parents, I never forget my mom saying to me after we adopted Bristol and we were starting all this, like, life's hard enough as it is. Like, you're not going to have to go out and find tough places to put yourself. It's going to be difficult. Like, just trust me. And I remember hearing that going, well, if it's going to be difficult, and I've seen you live a beautiful life, but I know every person that exists goes through trials and tribulations, regardless. Why, and I think Courtney and I's conversations was, well, why wouldn't we extend, you know, ourselves to the opportunity to broaden our worldview, broaden our view of humanity, broaden our view of faith, put ourselves in a position where if God doesn't work, we're going to fall flat on our face. Like, if we're going to your point a minute ago, if you're going to talk about faith, right, why not test it? If God says He's going to do this, if He says He's going to put you in a position where He was going to be with you, He's never going to leave you, He's never going to forsake you. What He calls you to, He's going to fulfill. What He promises you, He's going to give you. And I think Joshua's testimony to the people years after, you know, 21 wars or whatever, and he gets to the end and he says, the one thing I'm going to part and leave you with is that God will never make a promise that He doesn't uphold. Like, and to me, I remember reading that going, that's 21 years of war. That's 21 wars. No telling how long, 40 years, I think, is, you know, and he had this promise. And when he gets to the end of his life, he says, look, we're here now, and I'm just going to die telling you that God doesn't make promises He didn't keep. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm either gonna say I like that story, and like I want to live courageously like that, or I'm gonna keep going to a church or keep going to multiple, whatever, where I got 60 Suburbans that way that look like mine, 60 Suburbans this way that look like mine. Everybody's going in, everybody's coming out, and most of us are in a fight about where to go to lunch when we're done. I mean, I live that life.
Yeah.
And I always tell people if I'm doing podcasts like this or whatever, you know, I'm that people. I'm family. Family can talk about family, right? And so that's me. And the reality was through Bristol, through the adoption, we became completely convinced, without a doubt, that if we just stepped on the next stone that was visible, when we did, God was going to reveal the next one and the next one. And so we've been like that ever since. I mean, it's like, you don't have to have the 10-year plan. God's plan's not 10 years. It looks like a kindergarten scribbled on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, if I write another book, that's going to be probably the cover. It's just a kindergarten's scribbling, because that is the best way I can describe the kingdom of God and what it looks like in somebody's life. And I've had the opportunity, as you know, over the last 10 years to be around some of the most crazy and fruitful Christian people that you could see moving on this planet.
Yeah.
And they all have the same testimony. I mean, it's like, we didn't expect this. We didn't expect to be here. We didn't expect this turn. We didn't expect these people to come around. We didn't expect these people to give. You know, we just had to be obedient.
Shaking it up.
Dude, shaking it up. Shaking a tree, you know? I mean.
Why do you think more people don't, why do you think more people don't step into that? Because, you know, you've got 60 on this side, 60 on this side. You're the only one that does. I mean, I'm not saying that you were the only one that did it, but why aren't more people saying, hey, I want to go?
I think retirement, health savings accounts, 529 plans for your kids, right? Like all of these things that are great for stewardship of the young lives that God has entrusted to you. But God told me, you're going to live your life. You can, funding 529s and making sure kids don't have to pay to go to college, but I didn't call you to something and forget you had 5 kids or 4 kids, right? I didn't. Oh yeah. Well, God, I can't do that. I got 4 kids.
Yeah, I know you'll care for me, but I got to take care of them.
And it's like, he's like, you think I didn't know that? I gave you those kids. Like I put them together in their mother's womb. Why are you telling me that you can't be obedient? And I think we've just, when I'm asked this question, Daniel, it's a hard one for me.
Yeah.
Because the church is so near to me and has been so good to me in this journey. It still continues to be the place that God is redeeming the world through. Amen. Like, you know, so I'm passionate about the church. I do think that part of the ministry for us now is to reframe what stewardship looks like of the life of the church and the resources of the church. As you know, I speak about churches now being the largest landowner in the country and Catholics being the largest landowner in the world, and us paying bakoodles of money to have it mowed and cleaned up when we should be thinking about it, maybe reframing the stewardship process and thinking about what would it look like to have farms on those churches, those church properties, and start creating community and food and jobs for the underemployed, a local food secure system, right? Participating in something that might be 10, 15 years out before it's really, really necessary. But I can't think of anything better as a Christian than being on the tip of the spear of something.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. I'm not the one to figure this out, but I can tell you this, if what I see is true, and we do have all this land, and we are paying to have it mowed, what would happen if we invited this younger generation that is not going to go sit and listen to a celebrity pastor, or, you know, it's like they want to get out and do. Mm-hmm. I've got 3 of them in my house over the age of 17, right? And they're out doing. They're out. I told you my son was out at People Love in Nashville the other day, you know, serving alongside your wife and whatever. He's doing that on his own. That's just something he wants to do. And I'm like, we need to start thinking about putting those people in a position to exercise their faith without having to go to Africa.
Yeah.
You know, God's plan for me was to take me to Africa, but always I told you to send me home. You know, this is where God is richly continuing to bless the ministry, put me in situations with fellow believers like yourself to tell the story that's bigger than us, you know, of power breakthrough, light conquering darkness, all those kind of things that we heard about, but we never really could conceive until we experience them.
Until we experience them, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, amen.
So I think, so to answer your question, I think we're stuck a little. We're just stuck in what is a rhythmic, religious exercise that is not bad. It's absolutely necessary for the Christian walk to have Bible study, prayer, and community, discipline. And all those things.
There's nothing wrong with discipline. Right?
There's nothing wrong with discipline. Nothing. I'm not. It's not the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing with me. Right. It's like let's have the conversation as foot forward Christians about how we engage differently. Our nation has different struggles than it did 20 years ago. We ought to be evolving to meet those needs.
Yeah, you said something, and something that I'm always like wrapping my head around with the concept of what we just talked about is the fact that people want to protect their peace and safety. But the way that you put it just now, it made me feel like there's a fear.
Oh yeah,
there's just a fear, and it's not necessarily like you said a bad thing. It's just like, but we're stuck. It's not. It's like, man, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to break out of it.
I ask all the same questions.
Yeah. I
mean, I love the heroic telling of the life in the documentary. And, but I literally spent countless nights looking at the fan going at 2 a.m. while my wife was asleep going, I'm literally purposefully disrupting a beautiful life. Like, and if you're not there, God, we're going to have serious issues. You and I are going to have serious issues. Like, really. And that's not to say that I'm telling you that now after this beautiful story of what God's doing and Cultivate and all the redemptive things. But the reality is we know through people that, and through my life, maybe in the future, where the kingdom of God and the journey to get there is a whole lot more difficult and nasty, regardless of how we live our lives. But the reality for me was I can live 15 minutes from the greatest hospitals in the world and still lose a child. People do it every day, right down the road from us, right? Or I can be obedient and there's no ambulance services in South Africa. We were far away from the hospital. We learned how to glue our kids' heads together with super glue and do some creative things. But it didn't take away from me having to realize that proximity to a hospital, while important in this culture, should not supersede and be a boundary line for my obedience to what God's calling me to do. It's not like I can save them any more here than I can in Africa. But you do have to cross that hurdle of going, I got to give this back to you, Lord. This is tough.
That's the hard part.
This is tough. Because if one of those kids dies, I'm telling you, I'm not sure I'm going to continue to walk this journey with you. I promise. Like, hold me. Hold me. Help my unbelief.
Yeah, because I need you.
Because I need you now more than ever. And I think that help my unbelief is a constant conversation I have with the Lord. And again, you know me more than most of these people will know me that can hear this podcast, but it is a constant struggle of me being called to continue the journey, to continue to press forward into this, but to maintain the integrity of what this started out being, which is a conversation with the Lord. Like, if it gets away from that and I start hijacking the glory of the Lord.
Yeah, it's bound.
It doesn't matter what you do.
Bound to fail. Yeah.
Ain't no benefit to it. Yeah. Which is very tempting to me. I love approval.
Yeah.
I mean, I operate out of that. And so I have to have eyes on it, to make sure that.
Accountability. Yeah, got to have it.
To make sure that we ain't turning this into the Daniel Joey, sideshow of what can be done. I think God's always used human effort and human obedience and human willingness to move mountains. And this is a story of some of that going on in real time, But thanks be to God, He's doing it all over the planet. And He's doing it down the road and in Nashville, and He's at work everywhere.
And we
just get to tell the story of what He's doing right here.
Yeah.
But it's exploding all over.
It is, man. Especially, you said it earlier that the farm has become a place of solace and peace.
Mm.
At Ellington Agriculture Center, for those who are in Nashville, come check it out.
Yeah.
Tell us more about what goes on the farm.
Man, our boy Jimmy Hobbs.
Yeah, that's my guy, man.
So
I love him
our boy
so
Jimmy
much.
Hobbs. Just for the listeners, he came through Men of Valor. He's come out of prison, 50-something years old, spent about 22 years in prison.
Yeah, if you think he's got an accent,
Yeah, and
you
and
hear
him,
Jimmy.
I know you and Jimmy, you're near to Jimmy's heart, man. He loves you. He loved the fact that I was coming over this morning to do this. He's
Yeah,
like,
we got
"All right,
out of
go
prison like a couple weeks apart.
Yeah, y'all were there together.
Yeah.
And I met him at the van just like I met you, you know. I was meeting people getting off the van coming out of prison. And March the 6th, be 6 years ago this March 6th, they let him out of a van. And now he runs everything. He runs Cultivate. Jimmy Hobbs is Cultivate,
he's the
right?
man, yeah.
And I tell people probably the biggest revelation for me will be when I get to heaven and God, and he turns around, he's got an angel, he's got wings on his back, you know, and God was like, I knew you couldn't do this, so I sent you an angel to do it for you. That's the way I feel about Jimmy Hobbs.
I can see it.
Like, he, you know, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah.
If he didn't turn around, there wouldn't be wings on his back, and the Lord said, I got you with that one, didn't I?
That's funny.
Because the man I sent you is the man that built the ministry. And I think, you know, on the farm, bringing up Jimmy Hobbs, he would answer the question and say, you never know what's going to happen in the daytime. What we're trying to do, and we are doing very successfully, is use underutilized property through master services agreements to create employment opportunities for people coming out of what I would call different circumstances. I used to use the term prison and addiction. That's not all that's coming anymore. People are coming with mental health stuff. They're coming with just general trauma. You know, I just had this happen in my life. I need 1 year to get my breath and get my legs under me. I just lost my child, or this just happened. And man, so I've just started calling it a place of peace, a place where people can come. They earn $18 an hour. When they come now, that's way more than
that's
you.
Way
I saw you
more
looking at me going,
I'm like, hold up, man.
I see you looking at me going, man, you hammered me.
Where was mine? Yeah.
So no, as we've grown the ministry, we've just tried to adjust all those things. Like, what is the cost to live? You know, like, what is it? And, you know, back then I was bootstrapping it when y'all were there, just trying to cover payroll, and we were trying to figure it out, man. We were trying to figure out the next hydraulic hose on the tractor it was going to blow. The next, we were just, but God is good, you know. So I think that in a day they're working, we're hauling in food. We're getting it out to food distributors who can meet the needs of people at a local level. We try not to be on the road with vans and distributing, but more on the farm. So when you see the two in the brand or whatever, it's just to keep us focused on the food and the people. We'll do 5,000 plus volunteer hours at the farm. Just that farm.
Just the one farm.
Yeah, but we got 6 farms now, so it's growing.
6 farms.
Yeah.
I thought
it's
I
like
knew about 3.
Yeah, it's like churches primarily. Conversation with the state has grown to, like, let's utilize more underutilized state land, surplus land or whatever, to try to create these incubators for people to grow food. We got the retail store now.
Yeah.
And so that's been really cool. Probably grow that a little bit. I like the nature of it now because it's on the farm and it's small. But I do think there's a lot of value in upper income homes as they want to source food that they know where it comes from and
the
how
farm
it gets to
table
their table,
is,
all that stuff. I'm not a foodie, but I do enjoy seeing that become a vehicle of redeeming resource and moving it back and forth. I call it equity. You got the people coming out of prison growing high quality food and being proud of it, and you got somebody willing to pay for it because they know how it's grown, where it's grown, who's had their hands on it, what's process it's going through. So I think that's becoming more and more valuable to people. Again, putting us on the tip of the spear to do some really creative things as Christians with it. I think my role is to continue to do this kind of stuff, to talk about it, to advocate for it, to pray for the future leaders of Cultivate, people that will come in and take it to the next level. I do believe that God's anointed and ordained and preparing people to do exactly that. I love what I do, and I'm not going anywhere. I would love to see people that, have scaled and can scale and do some things really cool in that realm come in and do something with this. But God knows, again, you know me, and I'm living 30,000 feet in the air and 10 years ahead of us. Generally, that's my, and so trusting him that he's doing it. He's doing it. It doesn't depend on me as the pill that I have to swallow every day. And the word that I wrote on the barn post, surrender, is not something that I want the audience or anybody that ever sees me to think that's a once-off deal. Now, that's a daily deal. Because also in my spirit and my heart, I tell people my heart's a little idol-making factory. And so, I still got to go to the mat every night and in the morning and say, look, this is where I feel like I failed or I might have done wrong. Might not have listened to you. I never found Jesus to be somebody that was condemning or looking down on me. That's always like, come on, let's do this again tomorrow. Yeah. Let's do this no matter what. And I think that's what we got to get out of our head. Like, that's not a transactional thing with him. He's there. And it's foreign to us. It's foreign in human relationships.
Yeah, I think it's our understanding of relationships, especially as a Western culture. Just like you said, I mean, that shock with going to Africa and coming out
yes, sir. Seeing it different.
Yeah. We don't have that understanding of relationship like they did. The people in the Bible did, or the other people around the world. We just don't have that.
Yeah, and even, his closest 12 friends while he was here on earth struggled.
Yeah, and they were in the midst of that culture.
Right in the throes of it, right? And they're still asking the question, are you the one? Is this what we're, Yeah. And so I think, be easy with yourself. I made a statement the other day. They were asking me about how plants disarm conversations and create the space for, for the Lord to do his work, basically. And I told people, the person that was asking me, I said, I really don't know a lot about the connection to the soil and the soul. And I think there is a lot of connection there, but I know that the more I work with plants, the easier I am on myself. Yeah. And that's a personal statement. The more I'm in that greenhouse, the more I'm working with those plants, the more I'm a little easier with myself. Yeah. And just, being so quick to judge my habits, my reflexes, my decisions. And so I believe that the soil and plants and getting your hands dirty does a lot for people.
I love that. It's like the plant's going to grow the way it's going to grow.
That's it.
That's it. And that's the way it's going to look. And that's what it is. And it's still fruitful.
It's fruitful and it's God's.
Yeah. But one thing I wanted to say, that there was one time working there and something that really just impacted me the most was the tomato plants and the suckers, popping. So if you don't know what a sucker is, it's like an offshoot that comes out of a tomato plant that you have to prune.
Yeah.
But man, that stuck out with me because I felt like that's what I was doing in my life while I was at Cultivate. I was taking those. I'm growing on this vine, right? And I'm just finding these little things that look like a plant, that look like it could be good.
Yep.
And I'm just popping them off.
Yep.
And I'm realizing, wow, these are actually, it's beneficial. There's scriptures about being pruned and things that. And there was such a holistic view of everything coming out of a plant.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. How profound it can be in someone's life.
Yeah, I know. Recently got in, since you left, we got into like seed saving and stuff like that, where like which people smarter than me run this ministry, but so that, a seed has to die before it can come back to life, that whole parable in the Bible. And I'm like, yeah. But literally, they're freezing, like hydro freezing these seeds and putting them in the freezer, which is not conducive to a seed at all. I mean,
yeah,
you think about it's like blast chilling a seed and then putting them in these freezers and stuff or whatever. And then getting them out and planting them in the dirt, they come back to life and you got to plant from a tomato seed. You know how big those are? They're small. Nothing. And especially to see them to go to death, chilled, come back to life and realizing, okay, it's sort of reflective of our lives, man. You and I both have been in desperate situations, right? We've been in that blast chiller.
Yeah.
And we've been right there where and then in God's perfect plan. He's put us in completely different situations, completely different places, but we got life again, man. We got life again. There's tomatoes growing. That don't mean we're going to have to sucker off them suckers you're talking about, which we do every day, you know. But it does mean we got life again. And
that's good.
You look in a lot of people's eyes, you can see they don't have life. They may have what they need, but I think they want that heartbeat again. They want that pulse again. And, you know, we're just providing the farm as a place for that. I tell people it's at Ellington Ag Center, which you mentioned. It's Tennessee's the only ag department in the United States with a working farm on it, and it was really cool. We didn't know that at the time, but the commissioner told me that. And then if you're a taxpayer in the state of Tennessee, that's your farm, you know.
That's cool
because it's on state property. So people ask me, "Can I come see the farm?" I say, "Do you live in Tennessee?" They say, "Yeah, well, that's your farm. You pay taxes here at your farm. We're just trying to do the best we can to honor the state, honor God with it, and just continue to pray that we can do this, steward it the right way." And again, you know the men that steward it on a day-to-day basis and the pride that they take in making sure it is what it is. Those that have been down their nose, you know, they know what we're talking about. But they take a lot of pride in providing a space of peace and a place for people to go. And that's what we want to keep doing.
Yeah, it changed my life.
Oh,
it did.
You changed mine.
It did, yeah.
I mean, that's a sword sharp on both sides right there.
Yeah,
you know?
Iron sharpened, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, and then, you know, that's the first thing I ever finished.
You told me
life.
that.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd never done it. I mean,
do you know I use that for current and future? I will use it for future cultivators, we call them, is that when they get in the ditch, I will look at them and remind them of your story and say, you've never, because they generally have never finished anything. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, there was a man here who told us he never finished anything. And when he finished, the look on his face and the look in his eyes were like, okay, that's something I finished, right?
Yeah.
And so I tell people, I told somebody yesterday, I was like, you'll never know the power of finishing. Like, just quit asking yourself the myriad of questions that I know you're dealing with and finish, because I've seen the change that it made in people's lives. And you're the one that told me that first, I think, was like, I've just never finished anything. Like,
once I did, though, man, it just opened the floodgates. I'm like,
heck yeah.
Whoa,
I can do this.
I can do something with my life, man.
So good, man.
That was cool.
So good.
So I think you said it best. You know, I see it all over you, just the pioneer. And I'm curious if you have, I mean, I know you're at where you're at right now.
Sure.
But I don't want to get you too far ahead, because I don't
feel
want
like
to
I know
spin
where this
you up.
question's
I don't want to
going,
spin you up. Yeah, but is there anything else in the works of, like, obviously with continuing with Cultivate and continuing with food, but is there anything else? Because God seems to keep bringing you to places,
right,
to plant ministries, to let them grow.
Yeah.
Is there something else coming?
I want to see, so for Cultivate, I want to see us produce a zero compromise agricultural engagement tool that is replicable wherever people want to use it. Okay. When I say zero compromise, I mean, I want people to feel the value of offering a superior quality product to folks in ag. That's where God called me. It could be wherever your ministry is, but like always going to work every day, which is what this is for me, and expecting that if I provide 100% of what I got, God's going to put behind that what he needs. And I really do think we're building a nationally replicable model for food and land utilization and help and assistance for the underemployed, all while being in the flow of what is a very socially prevalent topic right now, which is local food, healthy food, right? I'm not smart enough to draw this plan up, but I am smart enough to see where it's going and pull the people in to help pull it off, you know, as God leads. For me, I think continuing to advocate for those that I love the most, and to continue to use them, you and others, to remind me and sharpen what God's doing in my life. And then I'll be 50 in 3 years. I was 47 on Thanksgiving Day. And so
Happy late birthday.
I spend generally this time of year reflecting and thinking and praying about what does it look like for me? You know, where are the best years of my life going to be focused? Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? I always thought I would be called to politics. In my early 30s, had the opportunity a couple times to run at a state level for some things. That might not be out of the future. You know, I really am just trusting God and saying, you know, here I am. Continue to lean into me. To lean into me.
I think it's so profound of the shift from the person you were before you sold everything. You had it planned out. You like if I would have asked you that, you probably would have said, I know exactly what I'm doing
100%.
In 5, 10, 20, 15. I know where I'll be. And now it's like, I don't know.
Yep.
It reminds me of the scripture that says the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. He doesn't know.
Right.
It's just,
and you know, it's crazy talking to you and to others about just I live in Brentwood now, right? I mean, I live in a very nice house in a very nice place, and I think the walls that have come down in my life is just like there's a ton of people that live in my neighborhood that do amazing things for the kingdom of God, like resource-wise, and like the mobilization Cultivate wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those people, right? So you and I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's like, I guess the Lord's just chipped away at my muscle memory towards judgment of people, addict or athlete, artist or, you know, recently incarcerated. You know, it's just like we're all on a journey. We're all trying to figure out how to best support one another if we're being good humans in order to get there. And it looks different for everybody. And I think it's just about staying in that place that you and I just talked about. It's like, don't know where he's going to lay his head, you know, but he knows that the place is provided.
Yeah.
And so I was asked the other day, you think you'll ever go back to Africa? And it was the first time I really had thought about, you know, because I've been back here longer than I was in Africa, you know. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah, maybe. I love the place. I see God using Cultivate to broaden conversations internationally, which really stokes my fire. Like I get invitations to go to Africa. I get invitations. I think I'm going to Belize in January to consult with a farm there that's ministering to addicted people. And so, you know, as I get those invitations, I'm like, man, this could be really big. Like, you know, we could start doing some international consulting, giving resources, becoming a resource channel for those organizations to engage food work while rehabilitating people. I think that excites me a lot. Yeah. You know, that's those amazing. Kind of big vision kind of things. Yeah, possibilities. Endless, yeah, and if I could, you know, really just have my wish list, this is Christmas, so I get my wish list. I like doing this. Yeah. I like meeting people on the ground. I mean, the only thing I get fired up about the trip to Belize is that I get to go and walk the ground with people who are broken. Like, that's my cup filler.
Yeah.
You know, like, because God's going to show up.
You know it.
Dude.
You know it.
And then when he does, there's going to be one relationship that's going to be there for life. Like a man that probably can't even speak my language or whatever, you know, but that through translators and whatever, we get to touch and heal each other. You know, him look at me and heal something in me that God brought me there specifically for, and me do the same to him. That's reciprocal. Like, you know, like, so I think that's what I would invite everybody that hears your podcast from now on to just give ear to. You know, what would it look like to do something a little bit different?
Yeah.
You know, in your marriage.
Wow.
I mean, heck, take the new neighbor cookies. I don't know, but just.
Yeah, I've got some neighbors that just reach out to me. They'll bring me stuff and food. And
you know what's funny is, what's funny is it works every time I talk about something like this. I get an opportunity to do it in my own life, and I'm like, Lord, no, I'm not doing it for that person. Like, they screwed me over. I'm not doing it for that person, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it happened just recently, and it was Jimmy our buddy that called me out and said, you don't want to do this because you got a bad taste in your mouth over a previous dealing with this person. And it's Christmas, and we as a staff want to bless this person this way. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, but then sitting there in that leadership meeting going, I am so blessed to be able to sit with a man who is literally looking into my life and saying, we've got the relationship where you need to hear this. Like, and half his life he'd been in prison, 80% of it in a single cell, right? I mean, and so to be able to be sharpened that way is, again, a testimony to the power of crayons and a kindergartner and a white piece of paper. Just letting it flow, and just don't try to do it all today or tomorrow. You know, whenever this reaches.
Growth takes time.
Yeah, a lot of time.
A lot of time.
He's still working on me. You know, the old children's song. He's still working on me to make me what I ought to be. It took him just a week to make the moon and the stars, the sun and the earth and Jupiter and Mars. How loving and patient he must be because he's still working on me. I say that to myself every day.
Amen.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So can you tell people how to find out more information about Cultivate?
Sure. We got all the Insta and
Facebook.
Whatever.
And Cultivate.
Yeah. Jen does a good job with that. You know, Jen, she was there. She's been there with us from the beginning. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll put some in the information down below too.
So it's like at Cultivate, spelled CUL2VAT.org. Go online, check it out. There's applications for service, applications for entry to the program. We're doing a recruitment January, February, March. So we'll take on 20 new people to work a year with us, to work on the farm, to actually have a living wage while getting whatever they need from the farm. You know, as mentioned, I used to have categories, but now I'm just like, if God leads you there, please go online and sign up. I would say if you ever see our label on the door of a restaurant, go in and buy the food. I mean, support the people that support us, right? People ask all the time, I'm like, buy our food. Just buy our food. Wherever you see our food, buy our food. I promise you won't be disappointed. And it'll support the wages of those that are coming, you know, through some hard times. And then just lift us up in prayer, man. You know, wherever God's working, the enemy's working as well. And so we see the tension of the darkness and light every day. And I know that you get this because you've walked a journey with us, but you know, the power of prayer is significant. And I just think believers and non-believers alike, I mean, just lift us up however you would lift anything up that's near to you, you know, that you heard that might have moved you. We'll take it. You know, we just, and then come see the farm, you know.
It's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place. Beautiful place. Yep. So,
you can't describe it.
No, you can't.
You have to experience it. You have to go.
You do. So,
well,
don't come today, 22 degrees outside. You might stick to the ground, but whatever, you know.
Whatever floats your boat, I guess, if you want to.
If you want to go. But you get to March, April, May, it's a good place. Come get you some blackberries. So
awesome, Joey. Well, thank you so much.
God bless you, bro. So proud of you.
I love you, man.
I love you too.
You're a good man.
Absolutely.
I'm really honored to be here.
Deeply blessed to be here in this seat, and completely proud of the man you have become, the way that you lead your family, and the way that I wanted to see if you would step out in this call when you came to me in the barn and said, I think God's telling me this, right? You have. So you keep running in the anointing that God placed on you. And just let me know what you need.
You're a big part of all of it, man. So
absolutely. God bless you.
God bless you too. And guys, thanks so much for joining us. I hope that you were blessed as much as I was by this conversation. Joey is an amazing person, and you know, thankfully I get to experience it more often than you all will. But I'm so overwhelmed by the amount of growth that has come from his ministry and in my own life and in the lives of so many others. Guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas season. As always, if you check out shop.divisionpodcast.com to get some of this merch, you can help support the cause as well. Cultivate.org, CULT.
Absolutely. And I got to get me some of your merch too. That's good stuff.
Yeah, you do. You can buy it. I'm not giving it out. No.
We'll do a shirt swap.
Yeah, shirt swap. All right, I'm down. Thank you to Path Recovery as well for supporting us and helping us expand the vision. And that's pathrecoverytn.com. Yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.
We're breaking down walls, tearing apart the